Hi guys, welcome to the Hindsight podcast, episode 1. Today we've got two lovely ladies joining Ashwin and me on what is our first episode. Ashwin, of course, is interested into doing this because he lost the bet, and we got some good response on episode 0 that Shantanu, Ashwin, and I did. So here we are, as promised. We're going to have more of these. But for now, for this episode, welcome Amrita and Sheta. Both of them are good friends, senior and batchmate from IIT Bombay, and now charting their own careers and paths. So, guys, welcome to the show.
Welcome. Cool. So, as always, let's start with intros. On a slide, we have their extremely stellar, shining resumes, which we shall not read through, but instead we'll ask them a different question, which is, both of you are from IIT Bombay. What's a memory of IIT Bombay that you hold very dear or that's very fond for you? Help us understand who you were back then.
Yeah, I can go first. So I went to IIT with the very explicit goal of studying aerospace engineering, but I was not so lucky. I actually got into the MSc chemistry program. So my entire first year, I was focused on getting a good CPI. CPI is what we used to call it, right? Like keep mixing up CPI, GPA. Yeah. So my focus was to get a good CPI and do a branch change. And I succeeded. So yeah, I didn't get into it.
One of those few branch change people.
Yes, yes.
You were 10-pointer?
No, not even once. I came very close once, one semester, but didn't quite make it. But what I really, what makes IIT so special is this was my first time living away from home. So this experience of freedom, of not being watched, over was very special. And IIT Bombay.
Girl in IIT, I don't think you can get away with not being watched.
I know, not being watched. I take that back. Not being watched over. As I was saying it, I was like wrong choice of words. But yeah, I think IIT Bombay is quite remarkable because there's no curfew, right? You could be out and about at all times of the day and night, and that made us so lucky. 18-year-olds or 19-year-olds with that kind of freedom, it's really something. Another really fond memory from IIT is all the humanities classes I got to take. Again, that's something that makes the IIT system quite special compared to other engineering colleges. I really miss the literature and economics and psychology and philosophy classes I got to take, and I'm very grateful for that.
Perfect. Thanks, Amrita.
Cool. So for me, before I came to IIT, I was this absolute geek, loved book, had read all these stories about Swami Vivekananda, who would only sleep for 4 hours, and IIT jana hai, you can't even waste a single second. So all I did was literally in my room, I had set schedules for going out and eating. I had no friends and no life. Mom and dad bolte the, bahar chale jao, tum chote se ho, height bhi nahi develop ho rahi tumhari, just take a round out. And I would just take 20-meter round in our backyard and come, because I couldn't waste that single second. So super introverted with no friends. I think when I came to IIT, I realized, I also wanted aerospace. So I got into aerospace, but realized I was the only girl in the class. So, just sitting alone every day was difficult. So I made a promise to myself, har roz I'll just sit with another guy, before someone else could take it. I think somehow that behavior translated into me just reaching out. So, all the activities that would happen, so all kinds of sports. I started running. I joined ECEL. I joined Mood Indigo. So sab kuch kar liya. And I think somehow that shaped my personality, like someone who would meet me after IIT, of being Mood Indigo, ran marathons, loved sports. I was none of that. I came into IIT thinking I'll be this NASA astronaut, and I just came out being this super outgoing, introvert, who went to BCG and fluent flights. So I think IIT helped me find a new side of myself which I didn't know even existed.
Sheta, so that's two things we have in common. One is we went in wanting to be NASA astronauts and came out as BCG consultants. But also we were both the only girls in our class. So 4 years apart and nothing changed.
Nothing changed. Yeah, but I think it was probably, but I hated it. I think my dad was so scared. I actually had to fight my dad. He said, don't take aerospace, and I was like, I only want aerospace. But it was hard. But I think it changed me for the better.
Both of you also found, sorry. No, go on.
Go ahead.
Both of you also found your better halves at IIT?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Not from your own batch though, right? So not the guys that you were sitting next to.
No.
Yeah, I lie. I mean, I had crushes on few of them, but didn't work out.
But Sheta did marry in her own batch, just not in her own department.
Yes. Amrita, you didn't marry your batch?
No. Senior. Different department, different year.
Wow.
My batch. Very proud to say. Moving on. Maybe the next. Now let's maybe get into the meat of what we wanted to discuss with you guys here, which is we're going to ask you to think back maybe 5, maybe 10 years back into your careers. And I think Harsh, you're on the wrong slide, by the way. You're one slide off. Yes. So the way we're framing this is, can you talk a little bit about something that the last 5 years have taught you that you wouldn't have believed back then? So, you thought this is how your future works out. And now with the benefit of hindsight, you're like, nope, that wasn't right.
Yeah. Amrita, you want to start?
Yeah. So about 5-6 years ago was when I took a break to write my first novel, which is Milk Tea, that took me about 3.5 years to write. I remember, it was a tough decision back then to quit my fairly well-paying job and do something as crazy as, just write full time. But I was also very confident that I would be able to do it because I had wanted to be a writer for almost all my life. And I used to write fairly regularly on weekends and, on vacations. But after I quit, like for the first month, I could not write at all. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what have I done? What if I only had enough good words in me to write on weekends? And then when I did start writing, everything was terrible. And I think it took me some time to, frame this this way. But when you take up a creative vocation late in life, but you wanted to do it for a long time, you've consumed a lot of what you hope to create, right? So you have a good instinct for what works and what does not, but you've actually not put in the hours to be good enough for you to good enough to impress yourself. So it's just about patience, and that's what I would tell myself if I could go back 5-7 years in time. Don't get disheartened. There'll be lots of days of self-doubt, but this is a long game. So just keep at it.
Amrita, if I'm not wrong, your brother is also a writer.
Yes, he is.
How did that help? I'm sure that would have led to a few interesting dinner table conversations or support during the time when you were figuring out what to write on.
So he's a humor writer, so it's very different. And he's a columnist. I was trying to write a novel, which is a multi-year effort. I think he's in general much more easygoing than I am. So he tells me I think too much. So yeah, he didn't have great advice for me.
I have a question there. You said, so when you got into IIT, you wanted to be a NASA scientist. Then you land up in BCG. When did you decide you wanted to write? And when you decided it, did you say, I want writing to be my main profession? Or did you say, I want to try to write a novel and see where it goes? Can you tell us a little bit how you were thinking?
So I feel like I've always led parallel lives, or rather I've always had parallel dreams. I was good at math and science. And I think in India, there's always this invisible hand that guides you towards engineering if you're good at math and science. But I also really wanted to be a writer. So those two, those two aspirations were always parallel tracks in my head. I didn't have any role models in my immediate family or, circle of friends who were pursuing arts full time. So that wasn't even within the realm of possibility growing up. So I'd always assumed writing is something I would do on the side. And I think maybe sometime in my mid-20s is when I started writing more seriously. I took a couple of writing classes when I was in San Francisco working at Google. I wrote some short stories. But then I realized that this was something I wanted to do every day. I actually wanted to get better at it. And I had an idea for a novel that I had some research. So it was no longer possible to do it only on the side. Yeah, so I took baby steps. It happened very slowly. But I think at one point, it became harder not to write than to, come up with reasons not to write.
Wow, that's impressive.
Sheta, what's your take? What's your look back, introspection to self?
Yeah. I mean, I think been thinking about this a lot lately. The one thing looking back, this is like even further, like beyond before IIT, usme Kaun Banega Crorepati used to come. And 1 crore was such a huge number that it just felt like वहां पर ऐसे लोग थे ना किसी की IIT में 1 crore की job. There used to be one person IIT Kanpur who got some job in San Francisco of 1 crore. That used to be the thing. But and it just felt like if you had that much money, life is set. You don't have to do anything else. And now having seen different sides of it, and now the excessiveness of it, in the ecosystem lately, it just feels like no amount of money is enough. And somehow more, even if you have a lot, that also just doesn't bring you the happiness that you want. And, I don't think I would have believed it. I would have thought, money could buy it. You have achieved it. You are happy. You have a great life. But 1 crore, so many people are talking at 100 crore hai unke paas. 100 crore walon se baat karo, they're like 1000 crore. It is not enough. And it's just different. I've also seen people, like I come from, you go for a lot of yoga retreats, right? And there I meet people who have left their careers and are just traveling with no money and are really happy and content and writing some blog or whatever. So, the perception of money has definitely, I wouldn't have believed I would have thought the way I'm thinking right now about money.
Interesting. And Sheta, you've gone and stayed China, US, India. You've also practiced becoming a yoga teacher. And in all of this, where did this sort of come to you in the sense that, money is not something, because you've gone through so many varied experiences as well. But why does this still sort of bother you today?
Yeah, because, no matter how much you earn, you end up having 1 or 2 friends who are also in that group who have that much money and they're like, that's not enough. So, or, it's just your friend circle ends up changing. And that friend circle increasingly starts talking about money and you feel, tumhare paas nahi hai, unke paas hai, and you're always comparing. No matter what, and uska aspiration hoga, hamaara aspiration hoga, no matter what number you have, whatever your fuck you money is, business school mein padhaya jata tha, we had calculated that number. 5 years later, the money has, the FU money has become 10x. Now, when me and my husband, we think back and saying, what is the real amount of money we want, right? We don't want to have kids for now. So, apne liye hi paisa chahiye, to kitna chahiye? So, it's just hard. And the funny thing is, I speak to my brother, he works at a bank and he's like, you're thinking about all this because you have money. I wish I had money. But I guess and I keep telling him that, that's not the answer. I wish I could tell you without you having to go through it. And that's just, how money is working or how all these vices of life work, that you get attracted to it so much that you almost have to see both sides to learn it. And I wish there was a better way to learn the lesson that जो करना है उसके लिए उतना पैसा नहीं चाहिए.
Good. So your clients can ask for a good discount on your fees. Next time you pitch to someone, आपका तो फी आपको नहीं चाहिए ना, मतलब वो तो 5 साल पहले आपको चाहिए, आज थोड़ी ना चाहिए आपको.
No, more different, because I was thinking, for example, right now, right, I did negotiate my offer, right, with BCG. Now, if I didn't care about money, why did I negotiate the offer? I do ask myself, there those things come around, it's what I'm doing should be justified, right? I don't want to be cheated. But I'm very happy to take another career where there is no money. And, I was doing a startup where money wasn't, and I didn't think about money. When we had to take salary cuts, that was okay, because the only driver was the work itself. But does it mean कि कोई कुछ भी पैसा देके चला जाए किसी भी job में, someone is getting at par? No. But maybe in my head, at least, they're two separate things.
And Sheta, this is not a comment for you. You obviously already know this, but this is for our viewers, especially our female viewers. All negotiate and get a better deal, because women leave so much money on the table by not negotiating. I learned this lesson very early in my career. So whatever your feelings about money, you deserve to be compensated fairly. So that's your right.
Yeah, that's a good one, because I was thinking, like, why am I doing it if I don't care about it? Paisa aayega to kya karenge? But it was just about being just in what I was getting.
Yeah.
100%. And Amrita, thank you for saying that latter part, right? This is something in tech, we hear of this a lot, which is, women tend to not ask for as much and, tend to get passed over when it comes to compensation. So we will ask our viewers, if someone is listening to this, that they have these two resources who they can reach out to, especially our women viewers, if they ever need more advice on that topic. I actually want to throw that to you for a second, Amrita. When you decided to start your journey to becoming an author, did money feature in that conversation at all? Did you? I'm assuming that at least when you were writing, you weren't being paid for it. So how did you think about this?
No, and that's one of the reasons why I put it off for as long as I did. I'm fairly risk averse, and I wanted to make sure that I had savings to get me through 2 or 3 years. And I think as a woman, obviously it's important for me to be financially independent, but it's also important to be seen as financially independent. And, that the optics of it are also more important to me. I'm not saying I'm a role model to young women out there, but, I didn't want to be seen as someone who was, who was like comfortably like just out of the workforce and relying on their partner financially. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it was very much on my mind. The reason I decided to come back into the workforce after writing my novel was because writing is extremely solitary. I wanted to feel like I was part of a community, part of a team. I really missed problem solving. And that's why I joined this nonprofit that worked on AI for social good. So that was after about a 3-year long break, 2.5, 3-year long break.
And on your next break for your next novel as well.
Yes, that's right. And 3.5 years later, I quit my job about 2 weeks ago to work on my next novel. Oh, wow. Part of the great resignation, as we are calling it these days.
Do we have a title or a theme yet that you can share?
No title. Even with Milk Teeth, the title was finalized about a month before the book was published. I've written about 100 pages, so I'm about 1/3 done. But let's see what it becomes. It's a work in progress.
That's good. I'm calling a dibs on if there is a character named Ashwin or not.
Please don't do that. Which is the perfect segue to continue us moving forward. So, digging a little bit deeper into your introspection, maybe another flavor of asking you to look back. What's something that was much more difficult than you'd imagine and feel free to look back 5-7 years and talk to us a little bit about what it was, why did you think it was difficult, and or rather, why did you think it was not difficult? And in hindsight, what's changed about that initial opinion?
Yeah. So for me, my dad, my mom, both have been super role models. My dad is from IIT BHU. So part of the reason that he inspired me to get into IIT. My mom is a national level hockey player. So I guess somewhere those sports genes came in and, it reflected at IIT and is super passionate for sports. I think in they've usually always been, people I've looked up to. I know lately, now that we're in their 30s, when I see them, when I go visit them, I can see them age. And it's just so, it's inexpressible, but you can feel that, they are getting into those stages of life and they would need your support, and that you are not able to spend as much time with them because you yourself now have so many more responsibilities of yourself, of your job, of your family, of your in-laws family, and your friends maybe, and it's just so hard to balance it and to see it. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but it's just hard to see, especially with respect to parents. And I never thought I'll get to feel it so quickly, or I'll ever get to even see it at all.
Sheta, was there a trigger that made you feel this way? I mean, something happened. Was there something that made you feel that, oh shit? I mean, okay, this is real.
So my dad had a minor stroke last year, and he's lost his left eye, and it was just weird. I mean, one of those things, like he was in his sleep, and then he woke up and he realized he can't see from his eye. And now when you look at him, he's all fine, but his balance has changed. When I look at my mom, she was very radiant, very, energetic, would wake up every day. And I see that less so happening in her, I can see her skin changing. And maybe that was the trigger where I see both of, I can see signs. It wasn't the case, I guess, earlier, and it's only lately, and probably triggered by my dad's incident.
There's also to do with the fact that, I mean, for example, for me, I stay with my parents. I can't see it as much, right? Because I'm seeing them hour after hour after a day. But if it happens after a certain point with a gap, maybe it's sort of slightly more starker.
Yeah, maybe it could be that I also don't get to spend as much time with them. I guess it's probably, when I have my in-laws around. Earlier, every time I had free time, I used to go to my parents. But now my free time gets also divided between me having to go to in-laws, and then there's no 50-50, right? It's almost sometimes 80-20 with in-laws and your parents. I think that's also so that you actually won't be able to see your parents enough. And there's some maths that you get to do, right? Till in your lifetime, you'll probably only have like X number of months with your parents. And those facts are just saddening to see.
Interesting. Thank you, Sheta.
Yeah. What was difficult? Again, I'll talk about my life as a writer. So I'm someone who's always done well at school, who did well in college. I worked in fairly structured environments where there were proper appraisal cycles and feedback loops. I think what was quite challenging for me when I started writing full-time was the absence of continuous external validation. And that also made me realize how my brain over the decades has just been engineered to constantly seek and expect validation. And when you're writing a novel, there's no real reward other than, the joy of writing a beautiful sentence. I mean, not till you have a finished. And even after that, art is so subjective, right? So you can't ever say that, hey, I have written a good novel, I've written a great novel. There will be agents who reject you. There will be publishers who reject you. You will get bad reviews. You will have terrible reviews on Amazon and Goodreads, no matter how good a book you've written.
Tension mat lo usse. We'll populate good reviews.
Yeah. So I think, teaching myself not to be so reliant on external validation, on continuous validation, was quite difficult. And then to teach myself to grow a thicker skin as I, later on in the journey of the book, when I was closer to publication, because I was rejected by so many agents. I was rejected by about 15 different agents, and I had better luck with publishers. And most of the reviews of the book have been very kind, but there have been a few scathing reviews here and there. So yeah, just like learning to grow a tougher skin was quite difficult.
So tell me a bit more about this, because I have like zero experience or exposure even secondhand to your profession. How does this work? So if agents tell you, oh, we didn't like, do they give you feedback in the classic consulting sense? Do they say, oh, we didn't like your book because 1, 2, and 3? And if so, are you tempted to change something, or do you say, no, this is my work of art, I am trying to find the right person to publish it, I don't care if you like it? How does that work?
That's actually a great question. So there are different levels, right? So the worst form of feedback is silence, when they don't even write back. So in my case, most of the agents I wrote to actually engaged with me. So you typically send them 2 or 3 chapters. If they like that, they ask for the full manuscript. So in my case, almost 80% of the agents I wrote to wrote back relatively quickly, saying they wanted to read the full draft. And I mean, all of them turned me down, but most of them did share feedback. And some of the feedback, especially from the international agents, was, this doesn't speak to me. This does not have an international hook. And some of the feedback was more specific, that this is very character driven. There isn't much that happens on the plot front, etc. So see, some of the feedback I decided to ignore, because I knew what I was trying to say. And I wanted to be, I knew what the essence of the book was, and I had a certain vision for the book. So that I wanted to remain loyal to. But some of the feedback was actually quite good, right? So I did revise my draft based on the feedback I got. But I had to use my judgment and, some inner compass to sift through the feedback and say, this is acceptable, but this I do not want to take.
I have a question.
No,
Yeah,
sorry.
sorry.
No, go on, Sheta.
I was just curious, this thing around not having external validation and still having to go on and on, you face it every time. As an entrepreneur or when you're taking a break, but you need something. Human brain requires rewards, right? How do you then create, how do you feel like at the end of the day, I'm happy or sad? Or how do you create a sense of achievement when you don't have the, the ecosystem of external validation?
See, there's a spiritual answer to that, which is not what I adhere to. I would like to. Your sense of happiness should not come from your achievements or your success, or and especially your financial success. I know that theoretically, but it's hard to practice every day. I think that, set smaller goals for yourself, and you try to do better than you did the previous day. So, I had to change my goals from wanting to be the best to wanting to be better. So I would set goals for myself. I want to write 500 words every day. I want to write 10,000 words a month. So there was some sense of progress. So I knew I was not just, working away in a vacuum. So there was some feedback I was getting from myself in that sense. But yeah, it's easier said than done. Even now there are days when I'm like, I just wasted the whole day. What was the point? How do I know if what I wrote was good enough? And then you remind yourself you've done this once and you will do it again. And there are good days and bad days, but you need to focus on the longer journey.
It does sound like a significant rewiring, right? Because as folks who've been to IIT, we are trained in stack rank, which is, it doesn't matter absolute how good you were. It matters if you had the rank to get in, then it matters if you had the rank. It's always, it's always about relative. And I think what you're describing is very unique, because now you don't have anyone to compare to.
Yeah.
Last couple of years have been a big change for everyone, thanks to COVID-19 and its descendants. So we don't want to dwell on the hard though. Anything positive, anything good that you guys look back on that you came away with?
I got to make a lot of weekend trips to meet my family, to do a getaway, say in Goa, and just like explore this whole work from home model, which we never, I mean, it increased the number of vacations you could take and spend time with family. So I think that to me was a great workplace model that came out of it.
Yeah, I think I would have traveled a lot, but I had a baby 4 months into COVID. So that kind of threw a spanner in the works. But I think a lot of
people...
people...
spanner in the works. Okay, I'll remind him a few days. But yeah,
you do know that this recording is going to be saved for eternity, and one day the spanner will listen to this.
Yeah. That's okay. He'll deal with it. But I think a lot of people say that COVID made them realize that life is very short. So it made them act with urgency. For me, it was quite the opposite. I think it made me realize that life is long and it's not a race. And there is time to, wander off the main path, to take risks, to make mistakes, or to just take a break. So here I am. Yeah. And I think there's, I'm sure Ashwin and Harsh have heard this. There's this famous line about parenting that the days are long, but the years are short. But my baby is 1.5. So the days and nights are still very much long. I can't wait to get to the years are short part.
It's good. Great. Thank you so much, guys. I think it was a good, nice, happy note to end on. I think it was great to have both of you here, the only girls in Aero to two people on very, very different paths.
Yeah, this was super useful. Loved having this conversation. We're going to flash up the email ID right at the end. If anyone wants to reach out, if anyone wants life advice, negotiating for your compensation, especially as a woman, or for anything else, we're going to disguise these guys' emails behind this one. If folks want to write to us, we will see if we can find time from Amrita and Sheta to get back to a few folks.
And if you have any requests for other guests for the future episodes, feel free to write to us. We'll try and figure out how we can get them in.